On August 14, 2005, something strange hovered over Athens. Athens is the capital of Greece. About 10,000 meters above, a plane circled silently. It had no contact with anyone. For 2 hours, it ignored all messages. Fear spread in Athens airspace. Was it a terrorist attack, or was it a hijacking? Greek Air Force sent fighter jets immediately. The jets approached the mysterious plane. Inside, there was complete silence, no movement was seen. No activity at all occurred. Passengers sat motionless. The cockpit was empty too. 16 pilots saw a person inside the cockpit. He did not look like a pilot. He moved around inside the cockpit. He seemed to be searching for something, or trying to understand something. Suddenly, the plane turned sharply. It descended rapidly toward the ground. Minutes later, it crashed into the mountains north of Athens. In this crash, 121 passengers and crew were lost. But what caused this disaster? Why was there no movement inside the plane? Why did the pilots ignore all calls? What happened after takeoff? This is the story of Helios Flight 522. It is also known as the ghost plane. Welcome to the Scope History video. On the morning of August 14, 2005, passengers boarded Helios Flight 522. There were 115 passengers and 6 crew members. They boarded at Larnaca Airport in Cyprus. Their destination was Prague, Czech Republic. They planned a stopover in Athens. It was summertime. Most people were on holiday from Cyprus. They planned to land in Athens. The captain was extremely experienced. He was 59 years old. He had over 17,000 flight hours. The first officer was 51 years old. He had 7,500 flight hours. Usually, crew expertise is crucial in accidents, but in this case it was different. Both pilots had flown many flights together. The first officer often complained about the captain. He said the captain was harsh and pressuring. The airline knew about this issue beforehand. The first officer had checklist difficulties. This later became an important factor. The plane was a 7-year-old Boeing 737-300. It took off smoothly from Larnaca Airport. After climbing above 10,000 feet, the crew contacted air traffic control. The captain requested 34,000 feet altitude. The request was granted. At 12,000 feet, an alarm sounded in the cockpit. This alarm usually sounds on the ground before takeoff. It signals takeoff configuration problems. Both pilots were puzzled to hear it in the air. After 90 seconds, the captain contacted his airline's operations center. He reported the takeoff configuration warning. He said ventilation cooling fan lights were off. He asked about circuit breaker locations. The engineer replied that lights should be off. He said the circuit breaker was behind the captain's seat. The captain's reply confused the engineer. The captain said the light was not off. The engineer remembered checking the pressurization system. These controls were near the captain's confusing answers. He asked if pressurization mode was auto or manual. The captain repeated, "Where are the circuit breakers?" Meanwhile, oxygen masks dropped inside the cabin. Contact with Helios operations was lost. The aircraft climbed to 34,000 feet. Attempts to contact it failed. Helios contacted Nicosia Air Traffic Control. They asked to reach Flight 522. The controller tried for 5 minutes. There was no response. Another aircraft was asked to try contacting it. This attempt also failed. Flight 522 entered Greek airspace without permission. It continued on its flight plan. Nicosia Air Traffic Control tried emergency frequency. Flight 522 did not respond. They then contacted Athens ATC in Greece. They asked if Flight 522 had been reached. Still, there was no response. 2 possibilities arose. First, Flight 522 had a radio transmission problem. It could receive calls but not transmit responses. Second, both pilots might have been taken hostage. Considering the first possibility, Athens ATC gave permission to descend, but Flight 522 did not descend. More than 20 attempts were made to contact them. No response came. Athens ATC contacted the Greek Air Force. They informed them about the unresponsive plane. The Greek Air Force dispatched 2 F-16 jets. Flight 522 followed its autopilot path perfectly. The descent point had been missed twice. Still, the plane remained at 34,000 feet. At 7:37 a.m., Flight 522 entered a holding pattern above Athens. A holding pattern means circling above the airport. Aircraft wait for landing permission in this pattern. On its sixth round, F-16 jets intercepted it. Around 7:30 a.m., one pilot reported a shocking sight. The captain's seat was empty. He looked into the passenger cabin. Light from windows revealed the cabin clearly. Passengers were motionless in their seats. Oxygen masks covered their faces. On the 10th round, another bizarre scene appeared. A person wore a light blue shirt and dark vest. He entered the cockpit. He sat in the captain's seat. He put on headphones. He placed his hands on the control panel. Pilots in the cockpit gestured to him. He nodded in response. Moments later, the plane's left engine shut down. The aircraft tilted rapidly to the left. It began descending toward the ground. Just before 9 a.m., the plane turned further left. Its right engine also failed. Approximately 4 minutes later, it crashed. The crash was in mountains northwest of Athens. Investigators immediately began examining the wreckage. They also questioned the engineer who maintained the plane. The night before, he tested the pressurization system. He switched the pressurization mode from auto to manual. After finishing, he forgot to switch it back to auto. The plane was flying at 34,000 feet. Manual mode caused air pressure to drop inside. Low pressure affects the human brain in minutes. This condition is called hypoxia. Hypoxia means lack of oxygen. Brain function declines quickly. Confusion and reduced thinking occur first. Eventually, unconsciousness or death follows. Pilots should have checked the switch before flight. They normally stay in auto position. 2 chances were missed, taxiing and after takeoff. When above 12,000 feet, the cabin warning alarm sounded. Pilots misunderstood it. They focused on the takeoff configuration alarm. They ignored the pressurization warning. They followed a runway procedure instead. This ignored the real danger. Oxygen masks dropped in the cabin. The oxygen light turned on. Early hypoxia effects were already occurring. The captain and first officer lost consciousness. After 10 minutes, passengers and crew passed out. 2 hours later, a person entered the cockpit. This person was flight attendant Andreas Prodromou. He had a commercial pilot license. He was not qualified to fly a 737. The cockpit voice recorder revealed his attempts. He tried to make mayday calls. He forgot to press the transmit button. Investigators found his flying skills insufficient. After fuel ran out, the engines failed. Even landing was impossible for him. Passengers and crew could not survive. Hypoxia had caused irreversible brain damage. 3 of 4 portable oxygen cylinders were used. Prodromou and possibly 2 other crew stayed conscious longer. After the crash, investigators began their work immediately. They examined the wreckage carefully. They looked for clues about the accident. The engineer who maintained the plane was questioned. He had tested the pressurization system the night before. He switched the mode from auto to manual. He forgot to reset it to auto after testing. The plane climbed to 34,000 feet. The manual switch caused cabin pressure to drop. Low pressure affects human brain function quickly. This condition is called hypoxia. Hypoxia is lack of oxygen. Brain function declines within 10 minutes. Confusion occurs first. Thinking ability reduces. Eventually, unconsciousness or death occurs. Pilots should have checked the switch. Pre-flight duties include checking all switches. The auto position is normally used. 2 opportunities were missed: taxiing and after takeoff. At 12,000 feet, the cabin warning alarm sounded. Pilots misinterpreted it. They focused on the takeoff configuration alarm. Real danger from pressurization was ignored. Oxygen masks deployed automatically. The oxygen light turned on. Hypoxia effects worsened rapidly. Captain lost consciousness first. First officer lost consciousness soon after. Passengers and crew became unconscious. Flight 522 continued on autopilot. 2 hours later, Andreas Prodromou entered the cockpit. He had a commercial pilot license. He was not trained to fly a Boeing 737. He tried to control the aircraft. He attempted mayday calls. He forgot to press the transmit button. Engines failed after fuel ran out. Prodromu could not land safely. Passengers and crew could not survive hypoxia. Investigators examined oxygen cylinders. 3 of 4 cylinders were used. Prodromu and 2 other crew stayed conscious longer. This proved their extended alertness. Investigation revealed pilot mistakes. Checklist errors contributed to the crash. Airline policies were reviewed. Crew training methods were questioned. Pre-flight checks were emphasized. SOPs and aviation were analyzed. Boeing studied warning systems. Takeoff configuration alarms were clarified. Pressurization alarms received more attention. Oxygen supply procedures were updated. Hypoxia awareness training improved. Communication protocols were strengthened. Air traffic controllers learned from the event. Emergency contact procedures were revised. Autopilot handling in emergencies was studied. Flight 522 became a case study. Airlines worldwide learned from this crash. SOPs were implemented globally. New pilot training manuals were issued. Pilots were trained to recognize hypoxia quickly. Cabin crew learned emergency oxygen procedures. Passenger safety instructions were reinforced. Aviation authorities conducted workshops. Regulatory bodies monitored compliance. Boeing improved cockpit warnings. Engineers ensured pressurization reliability. Maintenance procedures were tightened. Accident investigations became more detailed. Aviation safety culture strengthened. Crew coordination training improved. Post-accident reports were widely studied. Media reported extensively on the crash. Families of victims were informed respectfully. Compensation procedures were activated. Airlines reassured passengers about safety. The aviation industry prioritized learning lessons. Changes prevented similar accidents. SOP improvements reduced pilot errors. Crew awareness of hypoxia increased. Helios Flight 522 remained a critical case. Scope History hopes viewers learn from this story. After the Helios Flight 522 crash, lessons were learned worldwide. Aviation authorities studied the accident carefully. Airlines reviewed their SOPs. Pilot training programs were updated. Crew coordination was emphasized. Checklists were reinforced in pre-flight procedures. Communication between pilots and air traffic control improved. Emergency protocols were strengthened. Pressurization alarms were made clearer. Takeoff configuration warnings were refined. Cabin crew received better training for emergencies. Passenger safety instructions were clarified. Oxygen mask procedures were emphasized in training. Airlines conducted hypoxia awareness sessions. Pilots learned to detect early symptoms of low oxygen. Flight simulators incorporated emergency scenarios. Aviation regulators enforced stricter maintenance checks. Engineers ensured reliability of all cockpit systems. Boeing improved cockpit warning designs. Aviation safety culture became more rigorous. Investigators highlighted human error in accidents. Crew resource management received more focus. Safety audits were conducted regularly. Airlines adopted stricter SOP compliance monitoring. Flight operations centers improved emergency communication. Lessons from Flight 522 were shared internationally. New protocols reduced the chance of similar accidents. Investigations emphasized the importance of attention to detail. Human factors were studied in aviation incidents. Pilots were reminded to always double-check critical switches. Emergency oxygen supplies were upgraded. Crew drills simulated high-altitude emergencies. Air traffic controllers reviewed emergency interception procedures. Holding patterns were analyzed for safety improvements. Flight 522 became a case study in aviation schools. Training modules included the crash scenario. Lessons were taught about hypoxia effects. Pilots learned the importance of autopilot monitoring. Cabin crew were trained for extended emergencies. Airlines emphasized teamwork during critical situations. SOP manuals were updated regularly. Aviation authorities shared best practices globally. Media reported lessons from the crash carefully. Families of victims were given support and compensation. Aviation organizations improved safety briefings. Emergency response times were reduced. Communication clarity was prioritized. All cockpit alarms were standardized. Flight monitoring systems were enhanced. airlines created awareness campaigns for pilots. Passengers were reassured about improved safety. Flight simulators included rare emergency events. Engineers designed more fail-safe systems. Maintenance checks became more thorough. Accident reports were widely distributed. Aviation conferences discussed Flight 522 lessons. Industry experts reviewed SOP effectiveness. Airlines shared training resources internationally. Flight recorders provided critical insights. Human error prevention strategies were implemented. Crew performance evaluations improved. Aviation schools included case studies on hypoxia. Simulator sessions taught rapid decision-making. Crew fatigue management was emphasized. Flight 522 remained a crucial learning example. Investigations stressed the importance of vigilance. Aviation standards were raised globally. Airlines reinforced safety culture internally. Crew communication protocols were revised. Emergency oxygen usage procedures were clarified. Maintenance staff were trained rigorously. Flight 522 highlighted the cost of small mistakes. Aviation authorities ensured accountability for errors. SOP compliance audits were mandated. Pilots were encouraged to report anomalies promptly. Crew coordination drills became mandatory. Emergency handling guidelines were improved. Aviation risk assessments were strengthened. Airlines created awareness about hypoxia dangers. Scope History shares these lessons with viewers. We hope you understood the seriousness of aviation safety. Learning from Flight 522 can save lives. Always pay attention to emergency procedures. Thank you for watching this Scope History video. See you in the next amazing story on our channel.